Hi everyone, and welcome to my talk for the 2024 virtual Jane Austen conference. I'm so excited to be here again for my third year in a row. I really enjoy this conference and getting to see all of the different presentations, how thoughtful and creative everyone is, and so I knew this year I wanted to continue and present on something that I think is really relevant to today and also allows us to have a conversation that I think is incredibly important within the Austen space. My name is Tiffany. I have a master's degree in English literature and my focus is people of color in 19th century British literature. I'm currently in my gap year and I will start my PhD this September at Northeastern University in Boston, and I will be getting my PhD in English and continuing on with my area of focus. My title for my talk today is Regency History is Black History, exploring the historical Easter eggs in the 2024 adaptation of Sense and Sensibility. Annually, a plethora of Jane Austen adaptations premiere, from books to television shows and films, each bringing the celebrated author's work to life. Some decide to try to recreate the original source material to a T, while others modernize, tweak, or update Austen's text and approach. Or they decide to create an amalgamation of the two, maintaining the original storyline, but adding something to differentiate it as a modern adaptation. Writers may choose to set the Regency story in a modern time period, use race-conscious casting, or another setting, to name a few of those changes. The timeless nature of Austen's work allows these creations to flourish and appeals to creatives who take the bones of the story into their adaptations. This paper focuses on what I see as a successful and important example of the third way, the 2024 Sense and Sensibility released by Hallmark's Mahogany, a branch of the movie channel aimed at creating storytelling about Black people and their culture, while also using Black screenwriters, actors, directors, etc. The film features a predominantly Black cast and tells the story of the novel, while also leaving Easter eggs throughout that reference different historical moments and Black history during the 18th and the 19th century. In my presentation, I will explain 3 significant paintings that showcase an overlooked history of England that centers Black narratives. The film depicts Black history from the 18th and 19th century through an abundance of Easter eggs. Audiences can decipher these Easter eggs, which provide exposure to this neglected past. Dr. Vanessa Riley, the film's creative director, spoke on the choice to integrate this history into the film, stating the following. The film intentionally lives in this third space of adaptation, where the essence of Austen's story and characters remain the same, leaving room for the addition of Black actors and Black history woven seamlessly into the storyline. Austen's work allows for this to happen successfully because of the book's universal themes, which open up the film for the opportunity to reconcile these unique elements. Dr. Riley continues by stating, this statement perfectly encapsulates this decision's significance because, contrary to what zealous critics had to say about the film, it incorporates a narrative that exists already. But because of the one-sided view of history, people will see this in a negative light, believing it lies for the sake of inclusivity. However, that notion proves false and further emphasizes the lack of historical knowledge people have about the presence of Black people in England and makes this film incredibly valuable. The film highlights various paintings that express this history. While there are a variety to go through, in this section I will be breaking down 3 paintings detailing their historical context and significance. As the story goes, the Dashwood family must take refuge with a distant relative after being exiled from Norland Park, with so little inheritance, leaving them unable to afford anything as luxurious. They rent out the modest Barton cottage that belongs to Sir John Middleton, recently widowed and sympathetic to their situation. A large portion of the film takes place in this location, moving between their cottage and Sir Middleton's estate, specifically his dining and drawing room. In his residence, several paintings hang placed strategically into these shots to express this lesser-known history. The characters themselves do not interact with the paintings or make mention of the subjects, but since the objective of the film comes from letting the work speak for itself, they don't need to directly engage to convey this message. The paintings they chose fit perfectly into Austen's aesthetics of the film, cementing the pieces as integral to the creation of this atmosphere. Marianne, immensely skilled with the pianoforte, plays as the group converses in the drawing room after dinner. Mrs. Dashwood sends her compliments to the chef as they talk, better trying to acclimate into this new environment. Colonel Brandon interrupts them as he applauds Marianne's performance, and the others follow suit. This scene gives a first glimpse into one of the portraits that sits in the drawing room. A closer view of this painting comes later in the film after Marianne's accident, which causes a sprained ankle. Willoughby, having returned to Devonshire to visit his aunt, comes to Marianne's rescue and later attends dinner at the Middleton's estate for his heroic efforts. Sir Middleton helps Marianne into the dining room as Colonel Brandon and Willoughby are left alone to greet one another, tensions rising. This scene offers a full view of the portrait. The Royal Albert Memorial Museum in England currently houses this 18th century portrait of a man in a red suit. Plagued by a mysterious past, the identity of the painter and the sitter has changed over the years. The painting, Oil on Canvas, provides a vignette of the subject, focusing on capturing his image amongst a copper backdrop. Sports a red suit with a white shirt tucked underneath, with a minimal ruffle right above the buttons. He looks straight with his body slightly turned and encompassed in a circular canvas with an intricate gold woven frame in the film against a yellow wallpaper. Originally, the portrait had another name, Portrait of an African, but the museum decided in 2023 to drop the word African and replace it with man in a red suit. They explained the change by stating the following. The decision to rename the painting emphasizes the significance of not separating Black history with British history, because while the man comes from African descent, he exists in the context of 18th century England. The museum does emphasize how one should view this man as British, because if one disconnects the two, we receive a fragmented, isolated view of history. However, they still made the decision to not include that in the new title, which one does need to question why they felt so strongly enough to change it to begin with. If they decide to showcase his British nationality as his true identity, why omit the word from the new title? The change comes from a place of wanting to correct the assumptions that come from the original title, but one does wonder if this was labeled a British man in a red suit, would there be a different assumption upon reading that title? The sitter's mysterious identity also makes it difficult to narrow down the subject to provide a deeper look into who this man was, which could therefore allow for that to potentially be reflected in the title of the painting. But over the past 70 years, the man has been attributed to 2 Black historical figures in 18th century British history. During the 1960s, Equiano was believed to be the man represented, while the artist was Sir Joshua Reynolds. That changed in 2016 when Ignatius Sancho, as the sitter and the artist, was now Scottish painter Alan Ramsay. However, in 2019, those claims were rebuked and any ties to Sancho were dropped. Due to the lack of records for the paintings, all this speculation occurred. Even when one does a Google search of these two individuals, this painting will come up for both of them. But one must ask, who were Sancho and Equiano? Writer, composer, and landowner, abolitionist, all titles attributed to Sancho. Sancho lost his family, leaving him orphaned, forcing him to depart from South America at a young age. When his master brought him to England and then gave him to 3 sisters who lived in Greenwich. The sisters adamantly believed in stunting his intellectual growth, but he managed to catch the eye of John, the 2nd Duke of Montague. He made it his life's mission to prove the, quote, African genius by sponsoring education for black men. The two studied together until Montague's death, which catapulted Sancho to leave the sisters once and for all. Montague's widow hired Sancho as a butler, and he held that position until her death, after which he decided to try acting. He appeared in 2 productions, Shakespeare's Othello and Arthur Ben's Orinoco. But this occupation provided no real financial stability, therefore forcing him to abandon this and go back to the Montague household, where he worked for another 20 years as a servant. He married Anne Osborne, having 7 children, but only a handful made it to adulthood. Sancho's passion for the arts did not fade even once his acting career came to a close. He instead focused on composing. These compositions were performed at social gatherings where other black domestic workers would come together for a respite. He published these pieces in 4 volumes, becoming an influential proponent of the arts in England. His involvement in the abolitionist movement came after speaking with Laurence Sterne, who requested his opinion on what he could do to help the movement. Sterne, an Irish novelist, took Sancho's advice to incorporate the cruelty of enslavement into his own fiction. Sancho departed the Montague household, deciding to open up a grocery store in Westminster. This made him a landowner, which granted him the ability to vote, making him the first known person of African descent to do so. Even after his death, his influence reigned around abolitionist circles. His friends published his letters. Sancho's ties to the painting were rebuked, but I still wanted to provide a short biography to showcase the immense impact that he had in the 18th century and therefore reinforce this objective the film aims to display. Now, moving on to Equiano, who similarly to Sancho played a prominent role in the abolitionist movement in England. Born in southern Nigeria, he and his sister were taken at the age of 11 and then moved to Barbados before landing in Virginia. While living in Virginia, Equiano was sold to Lieutenant Michael Pascal. During their time together, they traveled all over, and Equiano learned to read and write. He moved from master to master, all while saving money. Within 3 years, he managed to purchase his freedom and settled in London, where he joined the abolitionist movement, becoming a member of the Sons of Africa. Equiano crafted an autobiography documenting his travels across the world and his life as an enslaved person. The autobiography became a massive success and an influential text for the movement. Before his death, Equiano married and had 2 daughters. Both Equiano and Sancho left a mark, having accomplished immense success and leaving behind a legacy of activism and self-determination. Even though the identity of the sitter in the painting has been debated on, I still wanted to touch on the significance of both men and the work they produce because it tells a story of England that remains hidden, one that becomes amplified through the film and the way the paintings play such a large role in starting these conversations. Now that we've spoken about the first painting, I want to highlight another portrait in the film that also continues this conversation. The dining room, another central location of the film, has an array of decorative elements that add glamour to the eating space. One of those paintings, a portrait of Dido Elizabeth Bell, purposely cropped to only feature her in the full frame. The Dashwood sisters and Mrs. Dashwood joined Sir John, his mother-in-law, and the 2 special guests for dinner. Belle is on full display with 2 candles in front of the mantel behind the dining room table. This scene provides immense significance to the development of the relationship between Eleanor and Edward. 2 sisters join them for dinner, having discovered they are related to Sir John's mother-in-law, supposedly distant cousins. Lucy Steele and Anne Steele One sister blurts whatever comes to her mind, making her incredibly obnoxious and not able to fully socialize as expected. Everyone behaves politely though and continues on with dinner. However, the following scene brings the group back to the drawing room where Lucy has a conversation with Eleanor asking what she knows of the Ferris family. Eleanor discovers Edward is betrothed to Lucy and has been for quite some time. She feels hurt and she endures by pushing her feelings aside for her family's betterment. Eleanor and Belle both hold this immense weight which requires them to put others before themselves. This parallel in the sequence here showcases just how interconnected the fictional world of the film is with the historical moments it showcases. Now, looking at the life of Dido Elizabeth Belle, her parents came from completely different backgrounds. Her African mother, Maria, hailed from Senegal. Meanwhile, her British aristocrat father, Sir John Lindsay, served as an officer in the Royal Navy. He sailed on the HMS Trent when he met Maria. The 7 Years' War was underway. Britain placed their Royal Navy ships at different trade routes along West Africa and the West Indies to protect their assets. When Maria gave birth to Belle, she baptized her body at St. George's Church. Belle, the only illegitimate child of Sir John Lindsay, happened to be the oldest heir. After the death of Sir John Lindsay, Belle was entrusted to care for her uncle William Murray, who owned a manor in North London. This was an unusual request. Not only was she an illegitimate child, she was also mixed race, which made people question how she earned this responsibility. She was raised as an aristocrat and learned how to read, write, play music, and other fine arts. She grew up in the manor alongside her cousin Elizabeth Murray, who is featured in the original painting that you can see here on the screen. In the painting, Belle wears expensive clothes made of silk, emphasizing her social status. The film purposely chooses to crop the image, excluding Belle's cousin, as featured in the original painting. This choice helps to amplify Belle as the subject of the painting and does not put her secondary to her cousin. Instead, she can shine as the focal point. Her story showcases the life of a wealthy Black heiress who lived amongst the ranks of the elite, and by sharing her story, it allows for even more of these historical moments to be amplified and adds to our understanding of this history. The final painting we will discuss today comes later in the film when the sisters stay at Norland Park. Marianne struggles to move past the heartbreak from Mr. Willoughby, expressing her pain of finding a will to live, as she believes all she has ever wanted has been taken away from her. She rushes outside in the rain, only in her sleeping gown, tears streaming down her face. Colonel Brandon rushes to her side after Eleanor wakes up, alerting him of her disappearance. Marianne lays in the bed after the local doctor checks on her, letting the family know he can do nothing else. And he believes Marianne will not be able to combat the fever that runs through her body. Marianne, despite the doctor's odds, makes a full recovery, and her resilience allows her to start fresh again and move on from all of this pain. This motif in the film of overcoming adversity perfectly reflects the painting scene in her bedroom. As the doctor checks her pulse behind him, one can see The Battle for Palm Tree Hill by January Sukadolski, which captures a moment from the Haitian Revolution. Dr. Vanessa Riley pointed out this painting in the interview she did with Den of Geek, stating, the blurred painting does remove the decapitation imagery, but there were several identifying markers which led me to figure out which painting this was. The Haitian Revolution consisted of a string of conflicts that began in 1791 and then ended in 1804 with the Haitians' independence. This historic event tells the story of overcoming colonization and being able to create autonomy for the entire Black population on the island, which also inspired many leaders to come afterwards. Including this painting within the movie helps to showcase the resilience Marianne overcomes during her illness, but it also again showcases this unsung history that is so vital to Black people at the time period. All of these paintings in the film aim to showcase these powerful Black figures, which prove that this history runs deeper than anyone knows about and how there is so much power in that, further elevating the film to new heights. Sensibility does a fantastic job of creating a film that brings Black voices into the Austen world, and it sits as a testament to what happens when love, care, and inclusion are at the forefront of creation. There are many more Easter eggs sprinkled throughout, and one can rewatch the film to discover even more. I do wish the film was longer, since it can feel a bit rushed at points and we don't get to linger too long in each scene, but it still has the foundation of the story, which allows for those who are fans of the novel to still enjoy the setup and the payout. Because the film premiered on Hallmark and for a brief stint on Peacock, that did decrease the audience who had access, since many won't have a Hallmark digital streaming platform subscription. Therefore, it became harder for it to reach more people, so it did not have as much of a chance of reaching beyond the Austenite community to the casual viewer. Hallmark promoted the film on their social media handles and teased the trailer on YouTube, which garnered positive and, of course, negative attention. Many users filled these accounts with visceral hate, showing their anger for seeing an Austen film predominantly featuring a Black cast, deeming the movie as woke and historically inaccurate propaganda. Of course, these users did not see the movie or probably know much about the actual novel. They decided to judge the film based on the short trailer, projecting their own ignorance. This shows how detached people are from the actual history and continues to project the idea of this pure whiteness in England at this time. My presentation aims to bring to light this history to showcase just how dangerous these narratives are, because they erase the real life people and events that have had a profound impact on British history and society. The world does not function in a vacuum, and one needs to stop promoting the singular view of history, because the film is not woke propaganda, but an extension of real stories that deserve to live within the adaptation space, and more importantly, the Austen space. The objective of my research is to amplify these voices, this history, and the literature to bring these to the forefront. Sense and Sensibility does a wonderful job of fitting itself into this conversation and allowing for audiences to be exposed to a history they would not know about otherwise. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. Please feel free to leave comments down below and continue on talking about this movie, and let me know your thoughts and any other Easter eggs or other things you noticed that you would like to share more about. There are going to be links in the description box for all of the resources that I used in this presentation if you'd like to read more about anything that I mentioned here. And I've also linked my social media handles as well in my website if you'd also like to check out any more of the work that I've done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see all of you again soon. Bye!